Good morning. All right, so I wanted to share, I was joking this morning with Ashley about the fact that this series is now on YouTube. So I told my 10-year-old son that his father is now on YouTube. And of course, he asked me the question that every 10-year-old wants to know, well, how many views do you have, Dad? And I was like, at least 10, maybe 15. That doesn't compute for a 10-year-old, but my father called me last night with words of encouragement for today because he's also seen it on YouTube. So never underestimate a single view, never underestimate a single opportunity, a single connection, because you have no idea the power that Jesus has in planting those seeds and what they will grow into. So thank you again for this opportunity. It's been a blessing for me. And I didn't grab the clicker. Hold on here just a second. You guys can actually advance the next slide. The guys are bringing it up from the table. All right, so again, we're in the middle of a 5-week series. As Andy asked me to come in and kind of pitch hit here while Chris comes and gets this ministry started. So we start off with talking about competition, right? The fact that we're always in competition in this world, and we need leadership to inform, to influence, and to show the way to Jesus Christ, and we do that through our service. Last week we talked about, well, what is leadership? We talked about the purpose, direction, motivation. How does Jesus demonstrate leadership through his actions, right? Knowing that Jesus didn't give us, day-to-day instructions. Just like in the military, I talked about end state, intent. Jesus taught us how to lead through his example. He showed us how to lead others back to him. And so today, we're going to talk about identity. So, how do you identify yourself? Many of us would say, I'm a son, I may be a father, I'm a brother, I'm a professional, I'm a sports fan. Many ways that we identify ourselves. How many of us would identify yourself as a leader? I would argue we are all leaders. And it goes back to, what is leading? Leading is simply influencing. So we are influenced by the world that we live in, but we are always influencing. Now, whether we are intentional about it or even conscious about it, but we're always influencing. We're always leading. So our identity as followers of Jesus Christ is as a leader. Now, the Army says this is what a leader is. This is the be, know, do model. Okay? Now, I don't expect you to look at that and memorize that, right? But you can kind of look up there and you see there's attributes and competencies. Right? These are the things that the Army has been at this leadership game for hundreds of years. And over time, they've identified these attributes and competencies as requirements to be effective as a leader. And we break it down into very simple terms. Be, know, do. be a leader, know what a leader does, know what a leader has for skills, and then execute on that leadership. Okay? I want to talk today about how does Jesus show his leader identity. So the first part, the Army talks about values, right? So up there you get under values. Those are the Army values. And loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, personal courage. Timeless values. Those are our organizational values, right? If you're part of this organization, this is what's important to us. By the way, it takes, in some cases, up to 6 years for somebody coming into the military, for coming into the Army, to assimilate their personal values to our organizational values. 6 years. So if you think about somebody coming into Christianity, somebody coming into a new organization, right? How quickly do they assimilate their values to that organization? It takes time. I mentioned morals, values, and ethics, and we spent a lot of time at the Army War College talking about that, right? Those morals, where our values come from, right? Those are formed early in our life, and those are, I'm not saying they don't change, but they are slow to evolve, right? So it takes consistent intentionality, effort to change those values, right? And then you have your attributes, right? Your physical attributes, your mental attributes, right? All the different character, presence, all the different things that make up leadership. What is a leader? So what do you say that Jesus' values are? So I put a couple examples up on the screen of some of the things that I think the values of Jesus are. Faithfulness, mercy, fairness, humility, right? But I also think, integrity, personal courage. These are still some of the things, right? And I'm sure you have some of your own thoughts, right? What were the values of Jesus? How do I assimilate my values to his, right? How do I join myself to him in that value, in understanding how those values connect, right? What are the attributes, right? We don't talk about spirituality explicitly when we talk about leader attributes. But spirituality is absolutely part of, as followers of Jesus Christ, one of our attributes. Okay? For know, right? This is what the Army expects a leader to know, right? Interpersonal skills, your ability to communicate, your conceptual skills, right? Your critical thinking skills, your technical skills, whatever your specific role is, right? And your tactical skills, your ability to operate in an environment of conflict. These are the expectations, that you have these skills, right? For Jesus, he led from the inside out. He was how he taught is who he was. His ability to tell stories that we've read and reread because they are eternal truths. Their ability to resonate even in the context of 2,000 years ago or in the context of our world today, those truths resonate with us. He knew how to serve. Right? We talked about service in the first part of this series, right? He knew how to serve. And he gave us examples of washing feet, of feeding the hungry, right? Things that we can continue to do today. And he showed the balance between compassion and conviction, right? Between grace and law. How to be fair, how to demonstrate resolve, courage, along with mercy and compassion. So then what does a leader do? Right? Again, there's that word influence. Right? And I know in today's world, right, we actually have a term called an influencer. But again, we are all influencers. We may only have 10 views on YouTube, but we all communicate. We all make decisions, right? We all provide motivation to ourselves and others, right? And then operating, right? This is what we do every day, okay? Plan, prepare, execute, assess. Simple terms that have, profound meanings. And then improving, right? Every leader works to improve the situation that they're in, the individuals that they're working with, and the opportunities that they're giving for the betterment of the mission. In our case, right, that's to point them to Jesus, right? So in every opportunity, we're looking at how do we develop, how do we build, how do we teach, how do we learn ourselves. For Jesus, and I touched on these before in the key task from last week. Jesus proclaims the good news. He equips people to live out God's plan for their lives, and he restores our body and soul. Powerful actions, but this is what a leader does. And so, a quick overview, right? But you may say, I don't know, Eric, that sounds really hard. Being a leader sounds really hard. It is. It's one of the hardest things that I've ever had to endure is leading soldiers in combat. To have all those attributes, all those competencies, to be no do in every situation is incredibly challenging. And I'll be the first to admit that I didn't always get it right. Because the stakes are really high. But the stakes are always really high. So, a quick story. Last week I shared with you I had the opportunity to participate in the elections of the first president in Afghanistan in 2004. And during that election season, I was in a province called Zabul. Province is, equivalent to a state. I was in charge of a base of about 100 people. We were the only American presence in that area, in that state, in that province. And we went out to one of the little districts, little villages, trying to see how the election was going. And we ended up in a firefight in a bazaar. So a bazaar is like kind of the main street. It's a shopping area. It's full of people. And my team and I are walking down this street. There's people everywhere. It's a busy day. And all of a sudden, you hear gunfire coming from the end of the street. And I'll tell you that getting shot at is nothing like the movies. It's actually highly overrated. Because you can hear that there's gunfire going on, but most of the time you don't actually hear the bullet till it's behind you. Right? So in theory, right, you only hear the bullets that missed you. Okay? So I was a 27-year-old captain, right? And you start thinking about things like life and death. You start thinking about mortality. And what I would share with you, our identity today, is the fact that we're mortal. Knowing our role in this world, our relationship to Jesus, is based on our mortality. Now, I'm not trying to be the pessimist. I'm trying to be the realist. We're all mortal. Everyone we love is mortal. Right? That is our identity. And that is my motivation to lead. That is my motivation to share the good news of everlasting love with the world around us. Right? That is why I lead. That is why I follow Jesus. That's why I point others to him. Not for myself, not to look at what I've done, but because I know that without him, I don't stand a chance against death. And that's a realization that I came to as a young leader in the middle of a firefight, thinking to myself, I don't know how this is going to end. Am I going to make it out of this? And that experience and some other, near-death experiences over my various deployments has led me to one of my basic foundational premises that I live my life by. Every day is a gift. Every day is a gift. Nothing in this world is guaranteed. There is no expectation that we get tomorrow. Right? We are mortal. Everyone we love is mortal. And so I think about not how or why I die. I think about how or why I live. Right? And what a great God that we have who gives us eternal life and gives us the opportunity to join him in heaven someday after we leave this world. So while it's not an easy topic to think about our own mortality or the mortality of our loved ones, I believe it provides the appropriate identity for us so that we understand how do we live, how do we lead, why do we do these things? Right? Leading others is hard. Again, it's those attributes, those competencies. Those are challenging things to be an effective leader of other people. But it starts with our motivation. It starts with our why. We've heard this, every day. What is your why? For me, again, it's the fact that I know that I'm mortal, that everyone I love is mortal. And what a tragedy it'd be, right, if we didn't have a God that saves us. And what a tragedy it would be if I didn't share that good news with everyone around me. So I know we're a few minutes over today. I appreciate your attention. I'll leave you with these questions for your small group discussions. And I look forward to our conversations next week. Thank you.